Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Caines, and Ed Mann.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Three Devs and a Maybe, and this is a special episode. Well, not that any other episode is not special, but this is extra special because it's been, I don't know how long it's been, but we finally have Lewis Caines back. How you doing, Lou?
Hello.
Look at that, he's real. It has. How was this? Right, so a couple of questions, actually.
Okay.
I'm sure you've... I hope you listened to the previous podcast. You've kind of got up to date what we've been talking about, but mainly it has been about you.
You guys have carried on recording without me? That's not nice.
I know, it's not fair, is it? But one of the things is Celine Dion. How did it go?
We go way back, me and Celine, ever since she did that Bee Gees song, because I'm a big Bee Gees fan, So
you got into her then, did you? I mean, how did the competition go? Because I know you were in the top three. Did you win?
The competition. Remind me what the competition was. I have listened to it, and what was the competition? Best lookalike? Yeah, I won.
I actually don't know. I think it swayed from being best lookalike to kind of doing makeup the same or like singing karaoke. Yeah, it was a very odd, but all we know is you definitely won, because in this fictitious world, why would you want to lose? You're definitely going to win it. Yeah, and you and Celine got on like a house on fire because of Bee Gees, obviously.
Probably the first bit of publicity she's got in a long time as well, I'd have thought, off the back of this podcast.
Oh, brilliant. Well, how's it going, Lou? It's a long time no speak.
It's alright, yeah, it has been a long time. I've missed doing them. It's nice to be back on. It's bit of a random last minute decision to do this, but thankfully I'm now in a position where hopefully I can be back on them a bit more.
Yeah, so what is the position? So what are you doing? Like, are you still at the same job? Have you moved? What's kind of going on in the Lewis Caines life?
Yes, and yes. I think are the answers to all three of those. What was the first one? The second one was, are you still working at the same place? And the third one was, have you moved?
I said, have you got a new job? But technically, I suppose you haven't got a new job, but you have got a new location for said job.
I have a new kind of life.
Yeah. So what is this new life you've got?
Oh, finally. I say finally. We've been planning it for a little while, I guess, but finally moved out of Kent and away from London, away from the rat race. We've moved out to the wild, wild west. While I say that, Wood and Bassett, it's not that wild.
The wild. Well, the intro. All I can say me and Lou met up. I was lucky enough. It was very nice host. Thank you, both you and Rachel, for the host. Lovely. It was awesome. Thanks, man. And sturdy work. All I can say is, if you sleep around Lewis Caines' house and you sleep on their new futon, Lewis Caines has done some amazing craftsmanship with the IKEA work there. Hands. Yep, exactly. Perfect.
I'll tell you what, IKEA have done very, very well out of us recently. I'm flat pack guru. Anything you need, I'm your man.
There you go. I like this. Well, you do realise we're going to get people well, we won't, but we would like to believe that we'll get people come in and ask you, and then it would just be Lewis Caines, a new podcast spin-off. Lewis Caines does DIY.
I shouldn't say we. I haven't been on this for a while. I've got to earn that right back again.
Not at all, man. Not at all.
Just me, not we.
But yeah, I mean, I did the trek. It's not really a trek, is it really? So I did just the drive to meet up with you last weekend, and we had a great time in Wood and Bassett. Nice evening, and all we can say is interesting bar staff.
We probably shouldn't broadcast that.
We won't really mention what happened, but it was an interesting event. We'll feel extremely guilty if something does happen. But anyway, yeah. So other than that, though, so what's the plan? What you been doing? You're working from home now? I'm guessing.
I am. Yeah, I'm working from home. I'm recording this podcast live to you from my new office with 2 out of 3 monitors working. Don't get us started on that one. Why won't the third one work? We've had fun and games with that. And actually, yeah, we should go about that, because if our millions of listeners, if anyone can help out with this particular conundrum, that'd be great. Because even the almighty Ed Man couldn't figure it out. And then when that happens, I know we've got no chance. Are you still there?
I am still there. I am still there. I'm just leaving it all to you.
I know, letting the old verbal go. Yeah, so working from home now, working from my office, as I said. And life is good. Very busy, but trying to adjust to, obviously, living in the southeast our whole lives. And now we've moved away up here, and it's it's a very different pace, but I'm absolutely loving it, and I love working from home. I don't think you can beat it.
Well, that's awesome, man. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I really, really, happy for you, because I know that because when we were speaking at the weekend, obviously you're raving about working from home now, and you're really enjoying that. And I'm glad, that, because I think for you, it's nice now that you've got that kind of. I think it's nice that you've got your own little space, your own little office space, and it's a really nice little space that you can kind of work in, go into, get there, do your work, and then get out of it. And I think that kind of works well, because also whilst you've been moving, also I've been moving.
Oh, yeah?
Not by no means as far, but just kind of a step back for a step forward almost.
About 500 yards in total.
Yeah, about 500, exactly. So I moved back with my parents just for the next year or so. Hopefully, the plan is save up on mortgage and all the grown-up stuff after that. So yeah, it's quite interesting actually, and I've got my own little kind of office space away from my bedroom, and I think actually that I heard a lot about when people were talking about working remote is to actually have that divide. I think it's very obviously a unique situation if you're obviously living like I am, like where you're living with your parents, or you're living like I live with some housemates. My office was also my bedroom. And really kind of my room, so
very dangerous, isn't it?
It is. It's very, you can kind of like sometimes say, okay, I'll separate it, that, that side of the room is, my work area. And now, if I'm lying on the bed, just watching TV, I'm not thinking of work, but it's very hard. And actually, I think the next step obviously is then having your own room for work. And then, outside of that room, you don't think of it. And I think that's worked well for me as well. I found it much easier to kind of, kind of, all right, put the computer down, kind of walk out, and that's it.
It's so hard to make that break, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And I think working from home, it's that kind of, you really do have to learn, what works for you, because I think it is different for everyone.
I think it's a lot like golf, going to the driving range. There's a similar analogy with that, where anytime you go and hit golf balls, because people, our listeners may or may not know of my golfing background, but and Ed's been with me as well a few times. But yeah, always end at the driving range on a good shot. And on the days when it's not going so well, you find yourself buying another bucket of balls and then keep on going and just trying to find that good shot. It's a bit like that with programming, depending on, well, for me anyway, working from home, if I'm having a good day, then that's fine. But if I'm having a bad day and nothing's going right, I've found myself, I've been at the computer for 14 hours the other day just because I couldn't seem to get to that suitable stopping point.
Well, it's the feeling. And the trouble with the feeling is the feeling changes, doesn't it? It's like our idea of what we know. If we feel like that we've, that this is perfect, or that, we learn and we know that now, it's like the more you know, the more you know you don't know. It's that never-ending goalpost. So if you've got that, you don't get that feeling of satisfaction, like, all right, that's a good time to end the day.
Yeah,
it can get hard. It's almost like you do need that. Again, that's where the pros and cons of working in an office environment, or kind of being regimented on yourself, saying, all right, I work these hours of the day, kind of help out as well, because I find that that okay, work 9:30 till 6:30. I'll do a little over or a little before, but all in all, those are my working hours. Those are when I'm, prime thinking of, the code that is in front of me, etc., like that. So, no, again, it's a learning curve, but I'm really glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, the good thing is that, I do really enjoy doing what I do, and therefore it doesn't always necessarily feel like work. It's not like one of those jobs, is it? If you're in the middle of something that you're getting your teeth into, quite often you want to carry on and learn more about whatever you're doing, or even if
it goes from 5 minutes to an hour to then, as you say, 14 hours of just, kind of working on something. And I mean, what kind of stuff are you working on at the moment? Have you got any things you can talk about, like any technologies that you've been using, etc.?
Yeah, there's been quite a few, I guess. I mean, I've had quite a few in my job. Sites tend to be ongoing. I don't seem to anymore to be kind of churning out smaller sites quickly. So
it seems to be big builds.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you prefer that? Do you like the bigger builds that you get to kind of get your teeth into for longer periods of time?
I enjoy the architecture side of it, and particularly with one that I'm on.
You nerd.
I never thought I'd say that, but I do. I think using Laravel particularly has helped me embrace that, because they use all these best practices, and you can't help but kind of see them, and occasionally you'll come across a new kind of design pattern or something that just so happens to fit what you're doing. And I found that happens a lot. But yeah, a lot of the last few months have been spent moving a lot of my old sites over to Laravel 5, and then having to go through the whole process of changing the servers to PHP 5.6 and all that stuff, and just a lot of refactoring and making my code a lot more concise. So
that's a really interesting thing you say there, because I don't know if you want to if you want to tell the audience kind of what your decision, why the decision behind going with Laravel. I know that, I mean, like the fact that you wanted to kind of move away from your own stuff.
Oh yeah, we're going away from what? Yeah, I know. Well,
because I think it's a very mature kind of nice idea, because I think some people decide, all right, we're going to, I mean, a couple of years ago, you were in the mindset, and actually this was something like last weekend, it was great kind of seeing what your kind of feeling behind it is, now where, everyone hates the idea of, building, it's a reinventing the wheel, and then it's reinventing the wheel. If you do reinvent the wheel, if you reinvent the wheel, you become very good at making wheels, which is great. Because the thing is, right, is that if you want to learn how to make the wheel, then and if you're a good developer and an interested developer, you kind of do want to look at these things and understand them. I've had that in the idea of the Flux stuff, because the Flux architecture is quite a simple idea, but there's so many different Flux implementations around, and that's because people have just said, well, I want to learn it. The best way of doing it is learning it. So you've wanted to learn web frameworks and stuff like that. You built your own, etc. like that, and then you've realized actually some of the benefits come out of these other frameworks that, the thing is they have time, or they've got more of a usership that allows them to, kind of embrace different areas that you haven't got the time to deal with.
Well, that was the thing. I mean, I got a hell of a long way down the road, right, with my own framework, and it was a brilliant learning exercise and a brilliant project, but I realised sooner or later, that I'm not a completely freelance web developer. I don't work for myself. Sooner or later, other people are going to have to look at what I'm doing. And it's no good that I didn't write any documentation for it, because I just didn't have the opportunity to do that either. Oh, Michael Budd's free. He'll be with us shortly then.
Awesome. That's a nice surprise. So that's great. I mean, and as you say, you took the decision, the mature decision, the nice decision to say, okay, well, let's port this over to something that's got more of a usership.
Yeah.
That will, provide an easier, learning curve before coming in, and I think that's the catch. It's the catch of everything, isn't it? It's the documentation. Code documents. It's self-documenting code. We all love that, but sometimes a good doc in itself, and the thing is, it's not only the docs. It's the fact that you've got the Laracast, you've got the YouTube videos, you've got the Stack Overflow, you've got it's the community, and the community behind it will help someone coming in. Say, God forbid, you're not there. It's the bus factor situation kind of feeling, where if you're not there, they look at this code, they're like, oh, so it's nothing that I can, ask anyone about. Whereas, typically web frameworks are quite similar. It's just how they do them. But if you give, kind of, okay, it's an underlining of Laravel. Obviously, you've got your domain layer on top, but the fundamental is Laravel. Great, I can at least ask questions, from people, or haven't, already a prerequisite experience with that framework.
It seemed like the responsible decision to go with Laravel. I mean, at the time, the main framework that I'd used before had been CodingNighter all the way back in the day, and I did absolutely love that. But we know that the guys that are kind of higher up in development don't speak very highly of it, and whether you agree or don't agree, you kind of have to ask why. And I think CodingNighter kind of fails in a lot of areas that frameworks like Laravel don't.
I think it's just because it never moved from the 5.2 stuff or the 5.1 support.
Yeah, exactly.
It couldn't move up, and it couldn't get the syntactic sugar. I mean, that's one thing Laravel does really well, is the syntactic sugar. It's an enjoyable experience. I mean, that's one thing.
The facades and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, and the way that he's written it and its composability of how it looks and everything. So, I mean,
it just makes you naturally have a better workflow. I think just the workflow of using Laravel, getting into the habit of having routes, and then if people
you were talking about middlewares, like the idea the middlewares are great, and it's this idea that I can add and compose these middlewares, and it's another nicety that these other frameworks have that again wasn't present in older frameworks, because the idea wasn't around, and maybe it was the limitation of the language at that time also prevented it from happening.
Yeah, absolutely right. And obviously, Taylor's now working full time on Laravel as well, so that it's going to carry on growing and growing. And I think there's so much there available. It's trying to be efficient in what you're doing, and I don't think it'll ever be possible to learn the whole framework unless you have enough situations crop up through projects where you have to.
It's the idea that you're not coupled to that framework as a framework. Like
Absolutely,
it's just a delivery of the domain logic that you have that you can hopefully make analogous. Well, no, analogous, no, agnostic. Wow, I'm not with it. I know I am not with it today. Agnostic from the framework. Yeah. I mean, I know that there are some coupling bits, some bridge areas where you're going to have to couple it up together. Obviously it's going to have to happen. And maybe there'll be some bits, this could probably be more generalized, more, split out of it, into the domain or, etc. But, the ability to be like, awesome. I can say it uses Laravel, but, you don't need to rely on the fact it's using Laravel.
No, exactly. You can, I still write quite a lot on my own, so I must admit I do use Eloquent because I don't think anything's better.
Yeah, well, that's just what I can ask. What are your favourite things of Laravel? Going into the Laravel world, what have you really enjoyed?
Middleware definitely is one of my favourite things, and route grouping middleware so that you can just drag your routes into these closures and just everything will work within there and you don't even have to touch your controllers.
And that's again a nicety, isn't it? It's a nicety that's present in, Laravel and these new frameworks. But that's great. Exactly. I mean, and you enjoy Eloquent as well.
Eloquent, yeah. I mean, it's fantastic. Once you get your head around relationships and stuff, then that's pretty much it. That's the big obstacle, and it's not that complicated, to be honest. It just takes a bit of experimentation. I think a key to before using anything with Laravel and stuff like that is to have a good grip on namespacing and all that stuff, because it does use that. And I only make a point of that because for a long time I didn't use that, but you kind of need to be doing that now.
Again, another thing from the Code Night days which wasn't present because it was still supporting 5.1. I think that's again. Hello, Mickey.
Or anything like that, or auto loading PSR4 or any of that stuff, and all that.
Hello.
Sorry, Mick.
That's all right. No worries. I don't want to interrupt you. It was interesting stuff.
How you doing, man? How was the jog?
Jog was good. Feeling pumped. So
pumped. 3.9 miles today.
No, 2.7. Always 2.7.
You've gone downhill.
I know.
Wow, knock him out. Yeah, knock him down there, Lou. I like it.
It's because the only time I can run now is during lunch breaks and because of daddy responsibility. So it's about all I can fit in really is that 2.7 miles. So by the time I've had a shower and stuff, it's time to get back on the keyboard.
On the keyboard, very nice. So it's great, good to see you, man. This is the first one with Lou again. I've done the introduction. I've talked about Celine Dion. You'll be happy to know that. But yeah, so I mean, other than that, then Lou. So what else have you been doing? Like golf. I know that golf has been really well this season. For some reason, stressful time for you seems to have caused an amazing upshift.
Not necessarily stressful, just busy. I mean, moving house is quite stressful, I suppose, but it's all been good things. But yeah,
it's one of the most stressful things to do in your life is to move house. I'm sure it is that and have a baby. And then Mickey, and I love the fact Mickey did that pretty much in the same month.
Get it all over
while doing university and everything.
University.
I'm not going to win this argument, so I'm just. Yeah. What was the question again?
No, I was saying, like, what else? Like, have you been up to? Like, have you been able to kind of look at stuff outside of like the web stuff? Have you kind of, been looking like anything outside the programming kind of interested you at the moment?
Anything outside of it?
Anything outside of programming, I know. The world outside.
Programming, golf, and pubs. That's pretty much.
That is a good combo. I'm not going to lie, that is a nice combo.
And I don't play a lot of golf this time of year. So,
so it's code and pubs.
Yeah, no, I try and swim, but yeah, I haven't done a lot like that either.
Oh dear, yeah. Trying to find a place at the moment to swim is obviously your problem. Seems to be.
But no, I mean a lot of my free time it's spent every day trying to make myself get better at this very, very tough job that we do, and trying to pinpoint the right things to be learning at any given time and stuff like, I don't know, JavaScript frameworks. I invested a lot of time in Angular, which I'm now thinking was that a bad idea?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think, that it's really weird, like how things have kind of changed. I think
people start championing it as much as the things like Vue.js and React and
the things like that, because that's taken such a massive shift. I mean, actually, Angular, there are kind of Flux architected
What is Flux? I should
So
know that, but you mentioned twice now, and I didn't ask the first time.
So Flux is an architectural pattern. You can kind of think of it as a transition away from the MVC model, which doesn't seem to work that well. I mean, it didn't work well for Facebook, and the bindings and the two-way binding and the way that kind of when you start connecting these things up, having a lot of controllers and views and models and views, models and controllers, the way these kind of, and you draw these diagrams of how they interact, it can get very complex quickly. And Facebook realized that they're getting people up to speed on these things was very hard. And then they thought, well, let's go back to the drawing board of what architectural pattern we're using, what style, how are we writing these things fundamentally. And they came up with this idea of unidirectional flux flow. A little self-promotion is actually, so other than the task app, which I spoke about earlier, on an earlier podcast, I also am going to be releasing, hopefully tomorrow, today's Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, that's obviously how the days go of the week. I'm going to be releasing a new blog post on Flux and kind of things on my Builder tech blog. So I'll put that in the show notes if I don't release it, or after the
I've
fact.
got a little compliment for you quickly, actually.
Oh, go for it. A compliment. I'll take compliments.
I bookmarked 2 of your tutorials.
Oh,
your blog posts the other day, both particularly relevant to what I was doing.
Thank you very much.
I'm just trying to go from... here they are. Yeah, the first one was configuring SSH public keys, because I needed to do that. And your article was very helpful there.
Thank you, sir.
And the other one was the good old installing Nginx, Apache, MySQL, all that.
Oh, man, yeah.
Because they don't seem...
Any pull requests you can do for me? Is there anything wrong that maybe needs to be tweaked? Because I don't think I've actually looked at those in... All of it. Thanks, Mickey. Thanks.
Well, the main thing is that the systems are a bit newer now, aren't they? Like CentOS 7 and all that stuff.
That's it. It pushes up so quickly. But yeah,
I managed to find. On Twitter, I tweeted the thing that I found that helped me to upgrade my droplet to 5.6, and it was all quite painless. I was thinking, oh god, is this stuff going to start breaking? But thankfully, it didn't.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good. No, it's always nice when you have an easier upgrade path than you fear. But so you got Flux, which is that architectural pattern, and it's very simple, but it lends itself towards the fact that React is really the thing that allowed us to get to Flux, because React isn't like a typical MVC, MVP, kind of way
stuff, isn't it? React.
It's not Backbone. It's not, Angular or Ember. It's this idea that you've just got this virtual DOM, and essentially you just it's mutable. It's pure. It's this functional idea that you have this state, you render it, you change the state, you render it again, and the whole thing in quotes gets rendered again. That in your eyes it will get rendered again. So
give us a really kind of concise example of something that you've done that uses that. Then,
so
like a real world example.
Yeah, so say, all right, just taking React on its own, or React.js, is let's say you have a list of users. Now, the data for, showing these users, you have the idea of a user may be, an admin user or a typical user. So you've got those flags. And let's say this React component needs to render those. So you pass in the properties of it. You say, here are the users. And the users are these at the moment, and it will render it exactly, saying, I need to have, it will generate the li elements and say, these are the li elements you need. If the status, if it's an admin user, maybe you show an admin icon. If it's just a bog standard user, you just use another icon. You do that. You then say, it needs to change. So you chuck it a whole new list of properties and you give it the whole thing again. Now, what it will do, what you think is it will just do the same thing. It will just re-render it. Now, that's great in your mental space, and that's how we feel about it, which is what we want to feel. We just re-render it again. What it does is does a diffing algorithm where it only works out what needs to change internally and changes those DOM components on its own. It doesn't do anything else. That's it. It will just do a diff, change, and that's it. So we mentally now can live on a higher level where we just think, it's changing it all the time. The data has changed. Give it all the data again, render it again, this is it now. But it will do the optimizations because obviously, rendering the DOM, changing the DOM is bad. It's very, very long-winded, very, process intensive. So this will change that and allow you then to just think of it in this pure higher level way. And actually, don't know if you've seen it, Lou, but yeah, so in a previous podcast I spoke about the task app that I've made, which is very simple, and also people at my work have been able to we're expanding on it, and we've moved it over.
Demo this to me once. I think I may have seen it. Did you show me it a while back?
I think I may have shown you the implementation we did at work, but not this. So this is kind of like a very trivial, simple to-do app style thing. But what it allows us to do is show off what we've done and kind of like how we've worked into it. But yeah, so what I'll do, I'll put that in the show notes again. But that then should be linked in the blog post for tomorrow, etc., like that. But so essentially, yeah, it provides you to work on this high level and allows you to kind of simplify your thinking. Which is great, but it does make you change things because you no longer have to be like, oh, if the button's this, if the icon's that, change it to this, and all these things. It will just do the changes for you. You don't have to think in stages of transitions. You just think in states. You just think from that to that, from that to that. It will do the transition almost for you.
Have you used Angular much?
No, I haven't used that. That is a full credit. I haven't used it. I used a bit of Backbone back in the day, a little bit, but I haven't used.
You haven't
Angular.
used Vue.js either.
No, I think Vue.js is very similar, isn't it? That it is just. Is it just the React side? It is just.
I'm
the
not
Vue
sure.
layer.
Well, this is the thing. I'm trying to figure out which one out of those two I want to learn.
I would say use React because it's got Facebook behind it.
Mick, have you used any?
I started trying to use Angular maybe about a year ago. Someone just sent me this one PDF actually, and it was like 3 pages on using Angular, and I did get it quite well, but I had some really weird issues that just kind of put me off. I had some weird jQuery dependency.
It has
error.
Flux, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know, it didn't really float my boat, I guess. But like I say, it's one of those things where I kind of accept that is the way that things are going. So I do need to catch up on that, but. No, not really, to be honest with you. I think I played with Ember as well. I sort of just did enough sort of like a Hello World type example with Ember and Angular, I think. And that was really about it, to be honest.
I haven't looked at those either.
I would definitely say that invest in React and Flux. Because also the new things coming out with React Native and the new thing, I mean, the whole Flux thing has kind of exploded as well, where you've got these Redux and things like this. I'm hoping to get some guests on the show. Actually, this leads into quite a good, a Software Engineering Daily is a podcast that I've been listening to. And this guy, I don't know how he does it. He has so many guests on, one a day almost. So he must do this. He must work freelance and have time to do this. But he has the React fundamental, he did a week about React. It's in podcast form, so maybe I'll put that in the show notes, Lou. Maybe check that out. I definitely recommend that. There's also the React conference that happened in Paris a couple of months ago. That was very good. There's some really good talks on there. But fundamentally, yeah, just check that out. I would definitely say. And also leading on to that actually is another thing. What you'll notice if you're looking through the source, because again, the source for the Facebook stuff. It's very simple, very clean, very easy because it's the Flux pattern is quite simple in itself. It's the additions that people add onto it. But they use something called flow type and flow. And flow essentially is just it's an analyzer, or like a type system on top of JavaScript that it just, it's removed at compile time or, at transpilation time when it moves, goes down into just the JavaScript that you'll get, delivered to the user. But it just provides a type system. So again, don't be scared by that. It's very TypeScripty looking, but flow type is quite an interesting thing to look at. Another product from Facebook. Facebook seem to be releasing a lot of good stuff into the open source world.
Okay, that'd be worth looking at. Because you're writing a lot of ES6 now as well, aren't you? That's another thing.
Yeah, and that's actually true. Yeah, so we did for Kong. We did so Kong is this API middleware. I think I spoke about that another time, and we've been kind of working quite a lot with that at the moment, with the way that we're kind of changing our architecture from being this just one Symfony application to many different applications that can kind of be their own thing. An API, SOA kind of serve all that buzz thing, but not really. It works. Again, it's funny how you get these buzzes, but really it's just what works. So this is even though we may be going this way, it is just because it will work and we feel it will.
And you understand that buzz, and then that buzz has moved away to something else.
Exactly, but you're like, okay, well now we're going to invest and we work out. Actually, yeah, this kind of made sense. It's again, we're like design patterns where I'm going to use a builder here, and it's actually like, no, the code kind of after you refactoring it will eventually become, it became into a builder as instead of, I need to use a pattern comes out of the code as opposed to being injected into the code.
Yeah. How does with React, how are they kind of treating the whole kind of versioning thing? Because obviously, like Angular, everyone's learned that, and they've got version 2.
They're still breaking. So it's 0.14 release at the moment, and there are breaking bits. But because the React is only the view layer, I think that's where people get a bit confused as well. React is only the view layer. It only deals with the components in the view layer. It doesn't deal with the architectural stuff. So you can do whatever you want with it. I mean, the fact is people have been using Backbone still as their, infrastructure behind it, and then using React just for the view because of how much better it is and more performant.
So you're using it on top of Symfony?
No. So Symfony's the backend. So we're using it on top of. So we're using the Flux architecture. We're using Facebook's dispatcher and all this gubbins. But yeah, but there's a nice tutorials. There's a lot of to-do apps in the Flux examples on the Facebook's website, but also we've got our Task App one, and I'd happily go through it. It'd be cool to show you it.
Yeah,
but I definitely say learn those. These have been really good. But with the Kong stuff. So we've been doing a lot of Kong stuff, and we've actually we've been quite fortunate enough. Well, not fortunate enough, I don't know how, but we've been fortunate enough to have a pull request actually merged in last week, a Lua one. So it's our first Lua script, because Nginx, so essentially Kong is a plugin or a system built on top of Nginx or OpenResty, and they have bindings into Lua, the programming language. It's just very JavaScripty kind of language. I think they pick it because Lua is very easy bindings, C bindings, very simple to kind of add as a scripting language. So we've actually been able to do a pull request in it, and also one today we've just released a pull request to do with OAuth stuff, so fingers crossed that goes in. But it's been interesting learning Lua, or not really learning it, but hacking around with Lua and kind of understanding that, and it's been really quite fun.
Are you hacking around with all these things in your own time as well, or is it on work time that you get to
it melds from work time to own time, because when you've got a problem and you're like, well, I want to solve this, so then it goes from being work time to home, you kind of work, just do it both in essence, and then you feel like, oh, it's a good blog post out of that, write the blog post, blah, 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 and stuff like that. So it's quite fun.
Cool. How's things with you, Mick? What's going on?
All good. Weirdly, I was going to say, I think I was looking for something the other day, and the tutorial that came up was a My Builder tutorial.
Hey! Woohoo!
Yeah, I can't remember. I don't think it was one of yours.
Paralysing, I bet it was the Jenkins one. Paralysing PHP builds or something, because you were doing some Jenkins stuff, weren't you?
I was, yeah, so maybe it was. I can't remember.
That is SEO, baby. Not really. That's just writing something and releasing it. Let Google do the hard work.
Well, it was top. It was very top of the results, what I was looking for. So, I really can't remember what it was, but yeah, otherwise, no, I've been pretty good, actually. I'm finding a little bit more time to code now. So once Toby's gone to bed and stuff, I'm doing a bit more, and obviously I'm getting a day a week now to concentrate on my uni studies, so that's felt really good, because I don't feel like I have been learning at all for quite a while, so
you feel that's out of the loop very quickly, don't you?
I mean, for me, to be honest with you, I'm not so much a guy that's I need to know this language, I'm more interested in tricky sort of problems in programming, for any language. And especially with this assignment that I'm doing, my final project. So I'm really at the minute just sort of, I just want to research so much before I even sort of start doing stuff for my project. So, Friday I was looking at decision trees, and, that was really interesting. And I was looking at it and thinking, this is simple. And then I started trying to implement it myself, and it's actually it's not actually. It's not as simple as you think. And, I think I just take a lot longer to learn some things more than most people. But so I learned that, and it was just a really interesting way of sort of calculating, confidence and probability of, certain data types and certain outcomes. So I put a little tutorial on my website, and the tutorial I don't think is particularly good, to be honest with you. And cheers. But I actually really would openly ask for feedback on it, because I think maybe there's mistakes in it, and I would like someone to confirm, say, oh yeah, you have got a good understanding of it, or you haven't. I wouldn't be offended if you said they hadn't, because I really just want to learn. So,
would you like me to comment now?
I would, just off the fly, don't even look at it. Just
say yes or no.
Yes or no, and I'll delete it if it's rubbish.
Where are we?
So it's on my homepage, michaelbud.org, and go to other, from the top menu.
Other. So I was in tutorials.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why I did that, to be honest with you. But, it's in Other, and it's decision trees. And someone could give me some feedback. I would really be grateful for that, actually. And the JavaScript is not good, but I'm more interested on have I actually got the concept.
The ideas. I think that's a really good point. I think me and Lou were actually talking about that before, where we were talking about like it's the ideas, isn't it, that matter?
Yeah.
Kind of like the fundamental kind of concepts, not the delivery mechanism or the implementation.
That's
it's actually
it.
like, do you grasp the concepts behind it?
Yeah.
It's not the fact that you're using like pretty syntax, it's like, oh, you're using syntactic sugar, aren't you clever? It's actually, no, I understand it fundamentally.
Exactly. I mean, both parts have their place. Obviously, you need to understand it, and then you need to be able to implement it. But obviously, understanding it is the first, and it's the crucial bit, I think. So
it's a very unusual example that you've done.
Yeah, I don't know. Basically, the video
I love it.
Like, does this guy play tennis in the rain when it's humid? And I was like, oh, I can't copy his idea exactly. But the other thing I was going to say is the video that I've linked on that tutorial explains things 10 times better than I do. And it's a brilliant video. I think it's 9 minutes long. And it's really interesting. And he just talks about the idea of pure data sets and just keep like splitting things, splitting until like eventually you get down to this. Well, hopefully you'll have a pure data set at the end, but maybe you won't. And if you don't, then maybe then you calculate a probability, because that's all you can really do. If you can't say definitely meeting this criteria, he does or he doesn't, or she does or she doesn't, then you have to work out a probability. But it's interesting. It just kind of, it really, I don't know, makes your brain work hard to try to understand things, because you start thinking, is this accurate? Because, there's my cat.
Hi, Dennis.
Sorry. Oh, every time.
It wouldn't be a podcast without Dennis.
It wouldn't, no.
You're going to mess in your carpet, is he?
No, but I'm worried that listeners are just going to report me to RSPCA thinking, what can I do to that cat?
Is the Dennis in pain? He's not.
Right.
He's just saying hello.
Just to explain, he is very old. He's like 23, which is very good for a cat. But anyway, so that decision tree is very, very interesting. And I still don't... I hope to use them at some point in my project. Obviously, like my main...
how is the project going? What kind of what direction have you taken so far? Have you been disconnected by RSP again? That's the main question.
No, thankfully not. It's been all good since then. I mean, my crawler's not working at the minute, so I did crawl like a few thousand results just for my own fascination. But I'm actually just going to crawl on specific terms at some point. And
so, are you hoping then to crawl on specific terms, get back what you get back what Google have got, and kind of work out why?
Yeah, and obviously I need to kind of understand every single factor that Google will consider, and there's no way I'm going to know all of them, but all I can do is my best. And really, there's certain things that I do that we know, like things like page speed are going to have an impact, backlinks going to have an impact. But
TLS is now, HTTPS is now a massive. It's a factor they've added in.
That's very, very true. Yeah, and user behavior, like how long do they stay on a page and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I created that JavaScript snippet that you guys.
What's the long-term aim for that then? What are you doing all that for? This is part of a uni module, is it?
It's my final project. So all this year, like I've no modules or anything. It's just one big project. And so I picked my own topic, which was, like, looking back now, foolishly entitled Reverse Engineering Google Search Algorithm.
Oh, right.
And so basically I want to try and be able to match Google search results as closely as possible as I can.
You won't able to Google that then?
Yeah, Google reversing Google's algorithm. See what they say.
But did you see someone
Infinity Loop?
Yeah, someone bought the domain google.com from Google or something.
Yeah, what was that? Do you have any more new? Like, I didn't read up on it enough.
I didn't read up on it enough as well, but I was like, wow, that's...
All I can assume is that they forgot somehow to sign, like, some... Yeah, I have no idea how, though. That is ridiculous.
I love stories like that, though, so, it's pretty cool.
It is insane. And the TalkTalk one, that is... Wow.
Yeah, it's huge.
And it was like a 15-year-old Irish bloke. Well, there you go.
Is that what they're saying now?
Well, he's been arrested in connection with it, so...
Wow.
And it was a SQL injection attack.
Was it?
That's all it was.
Oh, wow.
That's really bad.
It's pretty much, it's scary how typical that is.
I mean, it must have been a very old code base then.
Well, it's you know what though? Because it's probably just like maybe a portion of the code base is old or something,
Yeah.
It's this whole idea, you may have one page on the site that is old, that isn't encrypted, that uses, it doesn't, escape the string, it's blah, blah, blah.
Select all TalkTalk customers or 1 = 1.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, exactly, or something like that. And that's
it didn't work when I did it.
And it probably would just be. Did you try it beforehand, Lee? Is this? You feel disappointed?
Nah. Well, the luck that I've had with broadband recently.
I know. Well, this is it. Now, this is flowing through your 200 megabit Virgin connection at the moment.
Oh, baby, yeah. But God, I've had every single one of those.
Yeah, I know, that's true. You have had a bit of a mare. You would think.
So you stayed with Virgin in the end, then? Is that right?
after the rant at Richard Branson and
yeah.
I wouldn't really class this as a very good sales tool, but I kind of ended up with Virgin is more of an accurate way of putting it, because they don't seem to understand how cancelling an order works. They still send you everything. So.
Oh no! But you're getting good speed then.
Yeah, I'm getting 200 plus, 180 usually, or even up there. Yeah, it's fine now. But
that is ridiculous.
I went from them messing up my first order to cancelling that, to then receiving a load of stuff through from them.
Yeah.
Because apparently they'd had a system glitch, to then ringing them up and saying, fine, okay, I've got this stuff. If you hook me up today, then I'll do it.
Wow.
And they weren't able to do that, but at the time I didn't really have much choice, because I tried to get Sky as well, and their engineer couldn't come out for 10 days or something to install, so I was having to tether off my phone in the meantime.
But you did pretty well with that though, didn't you? You seemed pretty well. I
bought way too much data. I bought 20 gig of data, because I've never tried tethering off my phone, to be honest. So I knew if I stayed away from videos and stuff like that, I should be alright. But in 10, 11 days, I only used 8 gig, which wasn't too bad. So now at last I've got Virgin and everything, but Sky don't seem to have got the message that I've cancelled them either. I've got 2 lots of Virgin equipment and 1 lot of Sky equipment, so I'm doing a car boot sale.
It's mad. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was fun and games and everything, but yeah, now we've got Virgin. I mean, the product's amazing. You can't deny that.
You're enjoying it. I'm glad, man. Back on the toots and everything.
Yeah, well, the only other, when I was looking at packages again, when I was like, oh God, Virgin's not working out, Sky's not working out, where do I go? I nearly went for TalkTalk.
Whoa! So lucky.
Where do they go from there? They don't, do they?
I think they are. They're tarnished, aren't they? I don't think they can. I
don't know, because they've been hacked 3 or 4 times before this year.
This is bad. This is like suicide with it.
It wasn't full card details; it was half of the card details.
But it's all not encrypted.
I'm not defending them.
Yeah, it's like a dump. I mean, all I can assume, because we were talking about this over WhatsApp, weren't we? Like, how does it happen and stuff? And I mean, if they've got a secure architecture, one way of getting in is the fact of just SQL dumps, where they don't encrypt or secure their backup infrastructure. I think that's actually probably more of a typical one as well now, where you've got this really locked down system, great, but the dumps you reply, you send are all unencrypted somewhere. I can just access those, thanks, and I just bring them out. So
normally do with that kind of things, they just leave it to whoever they host with to run backups for stuff, or.
Oh no, they would run their own. I mean, they would hopefully do their own thing and encrypt them, and I mean that's a whole other thing, the encryption behind it and everything. They would have to do their own stuff, and it's not hard. This is the bad thing. I think we were tweaking it again on the WhatsApp thing, where it's like, the problem people have is you've got to make it really hard to do the wrong thing, whereas at the moment maybe it's too easy to do the wrong thing.
Yeah,
and what happens is people will just end up, just dumping it there and it'd be fine. And then, this is the trouble with big organizations as well, is that they'll be like, oh, we'll leave this temporary here. And then they've got a bit in the code to do, add encryption. And it will just stay there for years maybe. And then it'll be like, oh, it never happened.
I think
I said to you guys, I said, like, I mean, at the time I didn't know it was an SQL injection attack, but like, what can we learn from that to make sure that it doesn't happen in the things that we're doing? And you can only do as much as you can do, can't you?
Well, I mean, it's using these abstractions. I mean, an ORM has its pros and cons, but one of its pros is that it should hopefully, auto escape data. You're not using raw SQL, queries and stuff like that. But again, with raw SQL queries, it's just escaping it and making sure that you're clever with it. Anything that comes from the user is potentially bad.
I think part of the problem is, though, that the hackers are always on the front foot, and whatever we do is always very reactive to what they do. We can't really predict what they're going to do next, and that's an issue. But I do agree with you. Like if you do things the right way, but the point you made before that this is pretty old code that the new developers didn't even know about, or something like that, or they're very reluctant to touch. And I'm not defending TalkTalk in any shape or form, but they've probably been targeted because people knew they'd been hacked 3 times before. They're probably the guys you're going to go for.
Well, and also it's just bots. I mean, you have these scripts that we can run, that are, for our own pen testing kind of things, where, the white hacker, whatever they call it, that is the person who's just going in to just test to see if their system's okay. They just run those, and script kiddies can do it. By the way, guys, just audience, just to let you know, the bings and the bongs is Fraser saying hi, and also talking about how there you go.
There's another one.
Talking about Jet from the Gladiators. He's following her on Twitter, and this is the kind. This is the
office for Fraser.
This is the great conversation we get out of on a weekly basis. Oh dear, but no. Other than that, Mickey, what have you been up to then? So what stuff at work you working on? And
to be honest, I've been working on more commerce websites and stuff. So that's been
still, or?
No, it's sort of our own sort of bespoke system now. So quite a lot of sites, and like I said to you, Ed, actually topical like on encryption stuff. Like the last thing I sort of did was I've never really had to do this before. Weirdly, it's never come up, but I had simultaneously 2 payment gateways active on one site. So that was quite cool, and they both had like 2 very different ways of encrypting, and it's interesting to see like how they do that as well. But I think PayPal's one is actually very good.
Yeah, because you've hit quite a few of them now, haven't you? You seem to done the rounds on many payment gateway.
Yeah, and like they're all the same really when you get under the hood. But the encryption types are very different, and I would say some are more modern than others. They're probably all fairly safe, but I remember like back in the day, I never thought of encrypting payment forms. Never. You just
hopefully, if you just use HTTPS, you should be better off as well.
Yeah, it's true.
But no, I mean, like you do,
but,
if you're taking it down the wire.
Well, that's it. And one of the advantages of doing your payment, with a third party like PayPal, offsite, is that you can get around. You don't.
That's true. You rely on them. I mean, that's a good idea as well. Is I don't want to deal with this at all. I want no liability at all.
That's it. But, at the same time, I think, sites now these days should all have certificates, shouldn't they? But, it's...
HTTPS is a scary, confusing beast, though.
It is, yeah.
It really is. And a lot of people don't get it. And to be honest, actually, until this week, I really haven't, looked into it properly. It was only since, we've been working quite a bit on, the API stuff, that, I was kind of thinking. And, I mean, the different kind of certificates you can get, you go from the idea of just a simple certificate that's pretty much just like a computer generated one where it does the check based on, you have a DNS record, you must have that site, and then that's just for that one domain, to a multi-domain one where, it can happen on, multiple, you can then have one that has, subdomains, so it allows a wildcard on subdomains, but that's never going to be fully, kind of secure, not secure, but like, what people really want is this whole idea of what you get in Chrome and all these new browsers is that gold, not the gold, I think it's like a green bar where you get like you get the organization name in. Yeah. And that's, the highest of the high, where you've not only done the automatic checks, you've also provided, information like, billing information or like different information that you are this is a valid organization, you could be trusted. And self-signed certificates aren't awful for, but they are bad. Obviously, they're not going to be in a certificate chain for any users. So, they're going to come up saying, this is a unknown certificate. But if you're just doing it for like your personal stuff, that is, I want to make sure it's secure between me and maybe my home computer, my home server, web server, having a self-signed certificate is probably a good idea that you can validate and make sure it's yours. It's yours because you can check. Yeah. And then you get the benefits of having it going securely through encrypted.
Yeah,
because I think that's another thing. It's 2 different things. It's SSL, TLS now, because SSL is actually what Netscape made back in the 90s, and then it's moved over to using TLS infrastructure when it was more in like 1999. And there's 2 things where it's the encryption, which is the great thing, which means eavesdroppers can't come along, but it's also the it's the authentication and authorization. So the authorization is the bit where it's saying, oh, it's secure. And then it's authentication saying that this is the person I'm talking to is really that company. Because what's the point in having an encrypted gateway, encrypted network connection, if you're just going encrypted connection to a middleman? That isn't the guy, know. So there's those two different bits, but again, it gets confusing and it costs a lot of money. I mean, there's massive business in these certificates. And obviously now SHA-1 is now been deprecated in these certificates, and I think next year, I think that Google Chrome is going to start saying, you're not allowed them. In SHA-265 or 256 now is the one where you're meant to use SHA-2s. So all these new old certificates, I mean, some browsers, IE6s of the world, are actually not going to be able to go to some websites because they'll be required to have HTTPS SHA-2 certificates. So
PayPal, they don't allow SHA-1 certificates anymore.
There we go. I mean, look at that, so that they've actually got rid of, because I mean, a lot I think it's Ice Cream Sandwich. I think Android devices have problems with SHA-2 certificates, and also, so then it's Windows XP, SP2, etc. They have issues. So no, it's a massive, confusing, wild game. And I mean, we were having problems. So, like with the Kong thing was the fact that Kong required that we had an SSL certificate, SSL gateway in, but we were like, well, actually, with all these idea of like, you have your load balancing, etc., like that, you have like a cutoff. So it comes in Nginx, we strip out the SSL there, then we're just passing it through our own networks, our own private networks, unencrypted, to then go back out as SSL. But then it's like using this, it's X header proto or something. There was like a valid kind of idea, kind of norm now that you're able to say, oh, this was from a HTTPS source though. So we've had to include that. And actually another one, and this is actually very much on the encryption random kind of front, is the issue that we had today. And this is a bit of a weird one. So pseudo-random numbers aren't random, are they? They're pseudo-random. And they're random based on a mathematical equation that can be reproduced.
Some of them are based on noise now, aren't they?
You can get that, yes. So some, I think, like Dev, I know that maybe, I don't know if it's Unix kind of systems, they use the noise from a CD drive as well, or some external source. But essentially what happens is you have something called a seed. So you have a starter value that allows you then to reproduce and then create this then chain, this sequence of pseudo-random numbers. Now, if you pass the same seed in, though, you're going to get the same sequence back. And we actually got bit by this. So what happens in Nginx is Nginx has a couple of workers. So it fires off and says creates 4 workers. So you've got 4 instances. Now, what each one of those had was it then had this idea of it was a UUID, Universal Unique Identifier, but the seed was the current timestamp. Now, what would happen, though, if those workers were all created at the same time? They would all have the same worker ID. Now, what would happen then is, you'd go through one worker and it would create a couple of IDs, sequence, but then you'd start using the other worker and it would create the exact same ones and then be like, oh, we've got a unique, violation because it was access tokens. So, ways of dealing with it in this Lua implementation were using the socket one that had get time, but it was based by millisecond as well. That still has problems because, again, it's not uncommon for these workers to spin up almost simultaneously. And then you take into other considerations that you need to use the OpenSSL library because that allows you to have more randomness, and eventually we've made an implementation which actually we get to provide the access token that is used in a refresh token, so we can use it within PHP, because actually, and then put it in the show notes, there's like libraries that IRC Maxwell Anthony Ferreira has made, that's this random library, and it's a really interesting topic, thinking of this, well, it's random though, it's like, actually it's not. If you pass the same seed, because that's why people use a seed, the seed being the time, because the current timestamp, obviously, then at that time is going to be different for another time. But if you do provide the same seed, you will get the same values, and it will bite you in the bum.
Oh, that sounds like a nasty issue to...
It's a horrible issue, and I'm really hoping this feature gets merged in. But no, it's really interesting working like with GitHub and kind of stuff. But it's fun seeing all these projects and kind of looking at other languages. But no, I mean, it's been really fun.
Nice.
How about you, Lou? Anything else you want to say on your first episode back?
Just, can you hear me okay?
I can indeed.
I had my microphone off temporarily. Just, it's been a pleasure. It's been nice to be back. Hopefully we can all maybe get back in the habit of weekly ones, perhaps.
Well, I think
Yeah.
definitely it'd be good. I mean, we've now kind of got a bit of a set. I'm glad you got your setup at home now, with your office and everything. And we can kind of work around it and really kind of hopefully get some guests on as well will be a good thing, because I think now I'm getting an itch for speaking to some random people. It'd be awesome.
My next plan is to get a decent microphone as well. So,
are you leveling up to a Yeti, or are you going to see what's on the market?
Here's an exciting story for you. We registered with British Gas this week, and they give an Amazon voucher out with every new account. So I might see what I can get with that.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, British Gas. So every episode will be like, this microphone has been provided by British Gas.
Yeah, that was boring. Please edit it out.
What was boring?
My British Gas story.
Not at all. It is not boring at all. The audience needs to know about these things. They've missed you, Lou. They've missed you. All right then, audience. Well, it's been a great episode, and yeah, we'll speak to you next time. I mean, hope you have a good time doing what you're going to be doing and not listening to us. I should never say the last bit. I should have just left it where it was. It was fine where it was. Audience, goodbye.
Perfect.
Great speaking to you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.